Greg Ehrenberg here from Stokastic, and I'm going to be breaking down all of my favorite picks on PrizePicks for this weekend's MMA slate. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you're signing up at PrizePicks for the first time, use our promo code AWESEMO because they'll give you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit, and there's no better way to start building that bankroll than with $100 for free. These are my favorite picks for this weekend's card. To start us off, I'm looking at one of my favorite prospects in the UFC, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I'm taking for over 32.5 significant strikes. Now, 32.5, that's a really low number for a guy in Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's a massive favorite this week against Neil Magny. And I'm going to dig into some of the numbers and kind of explain, number one, why I like the over, and then number two, why the number is set so low. And for starters, we've seen 3 fights from Rakhmonov in the UFC, and they are all fairly quick finishes. A first-round submission, a second-round submission, and then a first-round KO in his last fight over Carlston Harris. He hasn't fought the highest level of competition, and we also haven't seen very high striking output numbers. So significant strikes for Rakhmonov in those 3 fights, 13, 21, and 13. So that is all well below this 33.5 mark. But also keep in mind, those fights were all fairly early finishes. He's taking on a veteran, Neil Magny, who's pretty durable. We've only seen Magny finish once in his last 9 fights, and he has a reputation of being a guy that pushes a pace and is also really durable and difficult to finish. So I think this fight most likely is going to go the distance. And then also when it comes to Rakhmonov and his low output, I just don't think he's been pushed to the point where he's had to have higher output. He's mostly just been able to sit on the outside and either pick opponents apart from range. The finish he had over Carlston Harris is a pretty nasty high kick, or he's been in other situations like against Michel Prazeres, where Prazeres just gassed really early, and then once again, there just wasn't much resistance coming Rakhmonov's way. I think with the way that Neil Magny gets in his opponent's faces and pushes the pace, I think Rakhmonov is going to be forced to fight at a higher output if he is to win this fight. So I think this is one that's going to go longer than the other fights we've seen from Rakhmonov in the UFC. I think the pace that Neil Magny keeps is going to force more output out of Rakhmonov. So with all that considered, I'm taking the over 33.5 significant strikes for Shavkat Rakhmonov. The next fight I'm looking at, it's Jinh Yu Frey against Vanessa Demopoulos. The takedown line for Jinh Yu Frey in this spot is 1.5. I like the under here, and it's not that I don't think Jinh Yu Frey is capable of landing takedowns in this spot, because I actually think that if she was to shoot for takedowns, Demopoulos wants this fight on the ground. She'd probably just cede position and would fight from the bottom here. But I don't think this is where Jinh Yu Frey wants to be, because if this fight stays standing, I think she's a near lock to win the fight. Her only risk of losing is if this fight goes to the ground, she gets caught in an armbar, which is what actually happened in Demopoulos' last fight, because she was looking terrible in her fight against Gomez Juarez in her last time out. She got dropped really early, but here's what happened. She gets dropped by Juarez. Juarez follows her to the ground and is looking for the finish, and just Demopoulos throws up an armbar, immediately catches her, finishes the fight. I'm thinking that Jinh Yu Frey looked at what happened in that fight and thinks, hey, I don't want to be on the ground with Demopoulos. I'm going to keep this fight standing, which is the easiest path to victory for her. And assuming that is the case, I really like the under 1.5 takedowns here for Jinh Yu Frey, who is not really somebody that hunts for takedowns all that often. During her time we've seen her in the UFC, she lands 0.78 takedowns per 15 minutes. Her recent fights, last time out against Ashley Yoder, no takedowns for Jinh Yu Frey. Her fight before that against Gloria DePaulo, she did land 2 takedowns in that fight. It's the only time she's gone over the 1.5 mark. She had one against Loma Lukbune, and then against Kay Hansen, she didn't land any takedowns in that fight either. And I kind of think this is the fight. This fight against Demopoulos most closely mirrors that fight against Kay Hansen, where Jinh Yu Frey had a significant striking advantage. When she was keeping the fight on the feet in that range, she was winning the exchanges pretty handily. But ultimately, where does she lose that fight? She loses the fight in the 3rd round. It gets to the ground. Kay Hansen catches her in an armbar. I'm hoping that she just avoids that situation, doesn't even shoot for takedowns, and we should cash the under 1.5 takedown prop fairly easily here. For my final PrizePicks pick for Saturday night's card, I'm looking at under 1.5 takedowns for Rodolfo Vieira. And the logic here is going to be totally different than the logic that I went with when it was the under 1.5 takedowns for Jinh Yu Frey. And it's as simple as this. Rodolfo Vieira, if he lands 1 takedown in this fight, I think that's a wrap. He has a significant advantage on the ground over Chris Curtis. Rodolfo Vieira is one of the highest level black belts that we have in the UFC. Now, I know that some people might look to his fight against Anthony Hernandez where he got submitted, but understand in that fight, Vieira just gassed horribly. He landed a takedown, or a couple takedowns actually, in the first round. He held top position for almost the entire round, wasn't able to secure a finish. The second round came up and he had nothing left in the gas tank. So then we looked at his next fight against Dustin Solfus, where we saw Vieira end up winning a decision. He was really conservative, though, really low output, just didn't want to repeat what happened against Hernandez, was trying to avoid gassing himself out. But here's basically what I think is going to happen in this fight against Chris Curtis. Curtis, who's also a very, very aggressive striker, and I think should have advantages on the feet over Vieira. Vieira is either going to get an early takedown and finish this fight, or Chris Curtis is going to be able to keep this fight standing and is going to knock out Vieira before he's able to land a takedown and submit him. And then also, if Vieira does land one takedown, don't be surprised if it looks something like the Anthony Hernandez fight, where Vieira does hold top position for the majority of the first round, maybe isn't able to earn that finish, although I think earning a finish would be most likely if it gets to the ground. But if he doesn't get the finish, then I just think he's going to have nothing left in the gas tank and get finished going forward in the fight by Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis is a really potent finisher. So I understand why this fight is set at nearly pick-em odds at sportsbooks. But I also look at this the same way, where with it being a coin flip, both guys with really distinct advantages. Either Vieira is going to be able to implement his game plan, get the one takedown, finish the fight, or Chris Curtis is going to be able to keep it on the feet and finish Vieira himself. So I like the under 1.5 takedowns for Rodolfo Vieira. Another bet that I think really makes sense over on PrizePicks for this weekend. So to recap, the three plays that I'm looking at PrizePicks for Saturday night's UFC card, I've got Shavkat Rakhmonov over 33.5 significant strikes, Jinh Yu Frey under 1.5 takedowns, and also Rodolfo Vieira for under 1.5 takedowns. All of these present good value, but not quite as good value as signing up using our promo code OSMO, where you get up to $100 for free. And also, there's a couple of different ways to play these props over at PrizePicks. One is the flex play, where you only have to hit 2 out of 3 of your entries correct to win some money. But if you're really confident that all 3 of these are going to hit, then you want to hit on the power play. You go 3 out of 3, and that'll pay out 5x your entry fee. So a couple different ways we could play these props over at PrizePicks. Before you leave, do me a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck and enjoy the card this weekend.